Let me begin by telling you the story of my granddaughter, who just yesterday, my granddaughter Olivia, Pastor Scott and Amy's daughter, she was telling me the story about her experience sleeping in the hammock, strung between two trees, in a camping environment, just resting and enjoying a sleep, and peacefully so until the sprinklers came on. And as she was telling me that story, immediately I associated it with a story that I was eager to tell her, and when she was done, I did. About the time before I met her grandmother, when I was still a single guy on a 5,000-mile motorcycle trip, I stopped one night at the end of a hard day's ride and parked my motorcycle at a city park and stretched my sleeping bag out on the grass and was sleeping peacefully until about 4 a.m. when the sprinklers came on. One story triggered an association for me with the other story. It was also recently, I was talking with my oldest son, Jeremy, and his wife about their boating experience. They'd been having a great time with their boat on the lake, and they were telling me a story about launching the boat and how the wheel came off the ramp. And as they were telling me that story, I was instantly associating in my mind all the other boating stories that I have experienced that I could tell. And that's how it goes when somebody tells a story that you relate to and you think, oh, I've experienced that, or I've got a story like that, or sometimes what we actually do is I've got a story that'll top that, right? And we start competing with each other. But anyway, in the course of telling stories, we often associate those stories that we're hearing with other stories that we'd like to share. Like, for example, the story of what happened to me earlier in the week. I have a Band-Aid on this thumb, and that's because I tried to take this thumb off of this hand with a piece of jagged metal. I was working at the workbench in my garage, and suddenly the thing in this hand slipped and jammed into the thing in that hand, and I put about an inch cut down into this thumb, deep enough that it got almost to the bone, and it started to bleed immediately. So I pressed down really hard, grabbed a rag and cupped it like this, and I was pressing so hard with my index finger on my thumb to stop the bleeding that I was actually successful in stopping the bleeding. And I went into the house, and I said to Cindy very calmly, as shock was setting in, I said, I think I might need some help here. And anyway, she immediately tried to help me, and it's like, let's get a Band-Aid on there. And I went to separate this finger from this thumb, and they were stuck together. And I thought, if I pull, I'll get them apart, but I'll take this flap of skin that was dangling on the thumb. I know some of you want me to quit right now because your shock's setting in for you, but I was like, I can't separate those two. Anyway, fast forward, half an hour later, we got those separated with some Vaseline and a butter knife, and anyway, and I'm doing good. Now, while I'm telling that story, some of you are thinking about the time when, just like pastors do, when we get together and we're like, yeah, let me tell you what happened Sunday at my church, and then instantly, there's an association with other stories, and everybody in the room just can't wait for their turn to tell their story. In fact, it's really an interesting conversation. If you could be a fly on the wall and listen to pastors talk about the stuff that they've experienced, things that have happened on a Sunday morning, well, some of it I can't even repeat on a Sunday morning. It's that kind of stuff. Anyway, stories we often associate with other stories. And Jesus said this about one of the stories in the Bible. He said, everywhere my story, the gospel, in other words, Jesus said, everywhere my story of love and redemption, everywhere the gospel is preached, the story of my death and resurrection, I want this story to be told with it. Now, some of you know what that story is. You've read your Bibles. Maybe you've heard a message like this before. Maybe it came to mind immediately. Some of you maybe are still processing. Others of you have no idea. But what I want to do in the next few minutes is tell you what that story is that Jesus said should be accompanying the preaching of the gospel everywhere in the world and why that's so important. The association of a story of a woman and what happened on a particular occasion and the story of Jesus' redemption. Today's message is entitled, Why This Waste? And it comes from this story in Mark chapter 14, starting in verse 3. It says this about Jesus. While he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of Simon the leper, he didn't still have leprosy, he'd been healed of leprosy. A woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of pure nard. Now, I don't know if that is something you relate to, an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made of pure nard. It's like, I'm not even sure what that really means. I actually had to study and find out culturally what's going on there. I mean, when I look at that, all I see is made of pure lard. I don't know why, and I'm thinking, why is lard expensive, right? Actually, my wife has bought some expensive perfume over the years. On a couple of occasions, I wanted her to take it back because I thought that was way too much to spend for a really small bottle of perfume, and then I realized how much I loved her and thought better of it. Plus, I don't like sleeping on the couch, and so I didn't say anything, but that perfume, the most expensive perfume she's ever bought in our married life together, doesn't even come close to the value that we're talking about here. An alabaster jar, is that like a canning jar? Like what kind of a jar is that, right? A very expensive perfume made of pure nard. Like what's going on? Well, it says she broke the jar, which is what you had to do in order to get this perfume out. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on Jesus' head. Some of those present were saying indignantly. That word indignantly means with a lot of attitude and a lot of criticism. Strong opinion, disapproval. You got the idea? Some of those present, which were some of the original 12 disciples and others, some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, why this waste of perfume? Like this is a completely wrong thing to do. This is a waste of a valuable resource. This is perfume that shouldn't have been used or expended in this way. In fact, they're thinking, next verse says, it could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor. And they rebuked her harshly. Could have been sold for a year's wages? Like what's the average annual income in the Spokane area? What's the median income? Anybody? Some of you are thinking, well, I know what I make. Now, the average median income is probably somewhere around $35,000, $40,000. Some of you maybe would love to make that much money, never have in your life. Others, you make more than that. But that's kind of the median. But just pick a number that you're comfortable with as an average annual income here in the Spokane area. And then imagine a bottle of perfume that's worth that. So like if I was walking around with a bottle of perfume that was worth 40 grand, I'd probably be hiring security detail to accompany me. That's like carrying around 40 grand in cash. I mean, all somebody has to do is grab that from you, go off and sell it, and they've got a year's worth of wages. And the others who are watching her do this are thinking, you could have done that. You could have sold it and then give them the money to the poor. Like, what were you thinking? And it says, and they rebuked her harshly. Like how harshly? Like critically. Like you moron? Like what were you thinking? Why would you do a stupid thing like that? Don't you realize how many kids, poor kids, could have been fed? How many poor families could have been helped? Don't you realize what a valuable asset you have? Why would you waste it? That's what they said. Why would you waste it on Jesus? What a waste. So many other better uses for the money. And they rebuked her harshly, and they were talking with one another indignantly. And Jesus agreed with them and said, you're absolutely right. Such a waste of such a great resource, this woman certainly should have done what you're suggesting. She should have sold it. No, he didn't say any of that. What did he actually say? Here's what he said. Leave her alone. Leave her alone. Leave her alone. Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. They think she's done an idiotic thing, a wasteful thing. Jesus says it's a beautiful thing. What's the difference? Why the contrast in opinions and perspectives? What is it that Jesus is seeing that they're not seeing? What is it that the woman gets and understands that Jesus sees that she understands that they don't understand. So he goes on and he explains in answer to those questions. He says, the poor you will always have with you, and you can help them anytime you want. In other words, nothing wrong with helping the poor. That's a need that will always be there, and you should help them when you can, and you have the opportunity to do that anytime. That's something that will always be true. But you will not always have me. In other words, there's a unique situation going on right here. And she, next verse says, did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare me for burial. Now, does Jesus need her to do that? No. Will they later come with spices to prepare his body for the purpose of burial? Yes. The rest of that is accounted for us in Scripture. Was that common in the culture to treat the body with spices and perfumes and things to kind of mitigate the odor of a decaying body in the process of burial? Yes, that was all culturally true. But Jesus doesn't need her to do this. But the fact that she chose to do it, Jesus sees as a beautiful thing. And then he says this remarkable thing in verse 9. Truly I tell you, wherever the gospel is preached, so I'd be right here at Maryview Chapel, and at every church in America and all around the world, and not only in the current day and age, but throughout histories from Jesus' time to the present. He says, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. Now, he's not just saying, yeah, this is such a cool story that it'll make the top 10 list of people's favorite Bible stories. As a matter of fact, I did a Google search. Be a fun thing for you to do, not now on your smartphone, but some other time. Just favorite Bible stories, top 10 Bible stories, that kind of thing. I went through a variety of those lists. Guess what I did not find? This story. You got Daniel in the lion's den. You got, Jonah in the... Yeah, apparently some of you actually have read your Bibles. Jonah and the Ark, or is that Joan of Arc? Exactly. The Ten Commandments. There's a lot of other stories that make the top 10 favorite Bible stories, predictably and understandably so. This one is rarely, if ever, even in the mix, and certainly not in the top 10. So Jesus is not saying, hey, this is such a cool story. It's bound to be everybody's favorite. It's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, when my story's told, I want this to be told as well. When my story is told, the gospel, the good news, I want what this woman has done to be told also in memory of her. Now, why would Jesus say that about this and not about any other story? I mean, think about all the stories. He walks on water. He calms the storm. He feeds the 4,000. He heals the leper. He does all these amazing things, all these stories. He doesn't say that about any of those stories, but he says it about this one. You have to ask yourself, why? What's so important? And I think at the heart of it, the main thing is that Jesus is trying to point out that this woman gets something that for us is hard to understand, and then even when we understand it, it's easy to drift away from. And that something is this, that following Jesus is more about devotion to him than about doing good deeds for others. Let's let that sink in for a second. Following Jesus is more about devotion to him than about doing good deeds for others. Now, is it important to do good deeds for others? Of course, and Jesus will say so in many other places in Scripture. Is it important to meet the needs of others and care about your fellow man and about people's challenges and respond to their needs, care for them in their times of struggle? Of course, that's all important. Good deeds done on behalf of other people is clearly important. But what Jesus is saying here is that it's the good deeds for others are that which flows out of the devotion to him, not the other way around. See, he said it this way. He said, abide in me, John chapter 15, and you'll bear much fruit. What's fruit? Fruit is good deeds done for others. In other words, if you're devoted to me, the byproduct of that will be fruitfulness by changed and transformed lives as a result of your influence on the people in your life. But if you don't abide in me, that'll stop. In other words, you can't do that without this. You can't just be about the good deeds and then lose your devotion to me, because then you won't have what I've intended for you. You won't have the way that I intended life to be lived. You won't have the kind of relationship with me and the world around you that I'm intending. The only way it works is devotion to me, and out of that flows all these good deeds done on behalf of other people. Churches, historically, just in the history of our nation, America, the last couple hundred years or so, churches have gotten this right sometimes, and they've gotten it very wrong. And whole denominations and movements have started out understanding this and then drifted away from it, and the focus is more on good deeds and less about devotion to Jesus, and they end up preaching what many refer to as a social gospel. In other words, the church exists just to do good deeds. Let's feed the poor and help, the hurting, and, let's do all these things to help people, and then we will have fulfilled our mission. And there's nothing wrong with all those things that we would do to try to help other people that are in need. Jesus is not saying that's bad. He's just saying that's backwards. That's putting, and I tried to say it in our first gathering, I tried to say that's putting the cart in front of the horse, but what I said was that's putting the heart in front of the course. And I tried to correct myself and said it the same way again. So I had to stop and think about it. That's putting the course in front of the heart in front of the course. How does that go? The cart doesn't belong in front of the horse. Is the horse important? Yes. Is the cart important? Yes. But which comes first? The horse, of course. Nobody's heard of a talking horse, unless, of course, I'm dating myself so bad now. Some of you millennials are like, what's he talking about? I lost him. Just Google Mr. Ed. He'll answer all your questions. What did Jesus say? He said, love God with all your heart, number one, and then love your neighbor as yourself, number two. He did not say the opposite of that. He didn't say start with your neighbor and that'll then produce love for me. He said, no, start with me. That'll produce love for other people. That's how it works. It's the only way it works. And Jesus is saying this woman gets it. Feeding the poor is important, but her devotion to me is the point right now. And what she has done is so important. I want this story told because I don't want my followers to lose sight of the fact that it's love for God first and then love for other people. And love for God is never excessive. It's never too much. Oh, I don't know. Wait a minute now. Hold on just a second. Do you realize what we could have done with a year's wages? Yeah, Jesus knows, and he says she did a beautiful thing. It's not about the quantity or the value of the resource. It's the devotion and love behind the act. She's saying, Jesus, you matter to me. And I don't care what this cost. Jesus, you're important to me. And I'm going to pour out a valuable resource of mine to demonstrate my love for you. And that's never a waste. Years ago when we were at our prior location, there was a lady who attended our church and whose husband was reluctant to come. And my wife and I decided that maybe the Lord wanted us to develop a little bit of a relationship there and see if we could invite him to come. And so we got together outside the context of a Sunday morning environment, just socially. And pretty soon he decided, well, I guess I'll try the church. I'll come and I'll visit and see what my wife's so excited about. And so he came one Sunday morning, and needless to say, she was thrilled. And I was thinking, well, that was time well spent. And then when it was all over, I'll never forget what he told me. This is a guy, by the way, who at the time was a management, upper management guy at Kaiser out here in the valley. And he'd come to the service, and so I asked him, well, what do you think? And he said, I just want to know one thing. He says, why are you wasting your life like you are? And in the course of a conversation that ensued, I realized what he thought was, with my ability or my capacity or my life experience that if I pursued a course like his in the corporate world, that I could probably go someplace, I could climb some ladder and make a greater income. It's like, why am I spending my life doing what I'm doing, talking to people about loving God with all their heart and doing good things for other people as a result or as a byproduct of that love for God? It's like, in his mind, that made no sense. And he said to me, basically, what these others were indignantly saying about this woman, he's just going, why this waste? And what he didn't understand was that my life wasn't being wasted at all. Anything I might have been or anybody I could have become or anything I might have accomplished in life is a very small price to pay for the privilege of serving Jesus like I have now for several decades. Since I was 19 when I gave my heart to Christ, and now that I'm 49, these last 30 years or so. I used to be able to sell that, but it's not working anymore. Would you believe 59? All my adult life, I have spent serving Jesus with all my heart and doing whatever I could to use my gifts and my resources, my time, my effort, and all of that to make a difference in other people's lives. And I don't care who thinks that was a waste of my life. I know in my heart of hearts it was not. That's a life well lived when you live your life out of devotion to Him, no matter how it plays out, and no matter who thinks that is a waste of valuable resources. But it's not just that one point that I want us to get. It's this, that Jesus challenges those who judge others based on their own faulty perceptions of what it means to follow Him. See, people don't have any idea what it really means to be a Christ follower in society at large, I find very often. A few do, but so often they get it wrong. I mean, just little things will give you a clue that people's perception of what a Christian's supposed to be is not really what a Christian really is. For example, when they swear, they say, "Pardon my French," if they know that you're one of those people, a Christ follower, a person of faith, whatever. They say, "Pardon my French." It's like, what does that tell you? In their perception, Christians don't swear. Or they shouldn't. But they do. What, am I getting too honest or real around here? Come on, if you've been a Christian for very long or known very many Christians in your life, you know Christians can swear just like other people can, just fine, right? So that's not it. So then there's sometimes they say, well, yeah, I don't get it. Like you say you're a Christian, but, and then they fill in the blank. You think that, you talk like that, you made that kind of a decision, you have that attitude, you voted for that politician, and you call yourself a Christian? By the way, while I'm on the subject, politics, which I'm never on, have you noticed? There's a very good reason for that. I'm just going to say this. I am not a foolish man. In fact, I am a wise man to put my trust in the one who sits on the throne, not the one in the Oval Office. I don't care who it is. But if I'm sitting in indignant criticism of another Christian's response to Jesus, that's what's going on here. When this woman does this, all the bystanders are like, oh, what kind of a dumb decision that. Did you see what she did? That's a waste of resources. Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, can you imagine how much? They're all talking amongst themselves, opinionated, judgmental, harsh, indignant, sure that they know better, sure that they're right, and she's like out to lunch. And Jesus challenges them. He says, hey, leave her alone. It's not your business. How she chooses to express her love for me, that's between her and me. You don't get to have an opinion. And besides, your perception of how this works is faulty. You're thinking, put the poor first and devotion to me second, and you're wrong, she's right on that score. Far too often, people looking in from the outside, people in our culture, friends of yours, people that work where you work, they're viewing you and others as Christians, and they're thinking certain things about who and what we are about and who we should be and how we should live. And the fact is, we're just like everybody else. We hurt just like other people hurt. We have relational baggage just like other people have. Just like Chris and Kate were sharing, we have issues with addiction and woundedness and temptation and all the kinds of things that everybody else in this world deal with. In fact, in every other respect, we're just as human as anybody else, and we're not any more put together. We're not any better than. We're not any holier than anybody else. But here's what we have going for us. We've made a decision in our brokenness. We've made a decision in our struggles to be Christ followers, inviting him into that equation, letting him bring healing to our heart and freedom to our soul, and helping us overcome the things that we're dealing with. And it may be a journey that spans our lifetime. We may have a lot of work ahead of us. We may be far from our goals and objectives still, but there is something that is true, and that is we're on a pathway that's clearly defined, going a direction that is unmistakable. I may not be perfect, but I know where I'm headed. I know I'm not perfect, but I am headed a very clear and well-defined direction in my life, and that is following Jesus, who loves me unconditionally, accepts me fully, and is powerfully at work to transform me and change me in all the ways that I need most. And you don't need to concern yourself with all that. He's got it. Jesus challenges those who judge others based on their own faulty perception of what it means to follow him. So they're taking issue. Woman, you wasted the perfume. And Jesus is saying, back off. She did a good thing, a beautiful thing, a wonderful thing. Which then, to me, leaves this question hanging in the air. It's just like, okay, so what is Jesus wanting? This is the question I'd ask you today. What is Jesus wanting you to do that seems to you, or maybe to others who are having an opinion, seems to you like an excessive use of your time, effort, finances, or other resources? Like what is it? See, sometimes the answer to that question is he just wants you to keep doing what you're already doing. But let's be honest, sometimes doing what we're doing to express our love for God by helping other people, volunteering our time, giving our finances, putting forth an effort, sometimes doing that leaves us wondering, is this worth it? Or have I been wasting my time? Have I been wasting my money? Is what I'm doing actually furthering the cause of Christ? Is it helping Mirabel Chapel minister to people more effectively? Am I making a difference? Are lives really being changed? Is there an eternal significance to everything I'm doing? Does this really count? Should I keep doing this? Should I keep investing myself in this? Or is this a waste? Sometimes we struggle with that. And I want to encourage you that if it's done for Jesus, it is never a waste. If you're doing it for a result or an outcome, then that's a whole different dynamic. But that's the wrong question. Well, did it accomplish what I was hoping? Did people notice like I was hoping they'd notice? Did people thank me like I was expecting to be thanked? Did it turn out like I was hoping? Did it play out? Did it get the results? Did it bear the fruit? If we look at it from the standpoint of doing good deeds for others and evaluating it that way, sometimes we're going to conclude, yeah, it was a waste. But that's the wrong question and the wrong conclusion. If it's done for Jesus, it's never a waste. So what is Jesus wanting you to do? Seems like, I don't know if I should give that much time or that much effort or that much money or devote that many of my resources to that. Is that really a good use of what's mine to manage and what are my resources and mine to make decisions about? And the answer is, if Jesus is leading you to do it, never mind the outcome. It's worth it. Go for it. Do it. Do it. See, if that's the question, then my challenge to you is, then do it. But back to the question, because I'd like to reword this with you for just a second here before we wrap up. Let's cross out these things in yellow here. What is Jesus wanting you to do that seems to you like an excessive use of your, can we just X these out and put in the word love? An excessive use of your love. Here's what I mean. You're in a marriage relationship where you just feel like you've given your love and given your love and given your love and given your love, and it's just not working out, and you're wondering if that's a waste of the love that you have to give because you're thinking of your love as a finite resource, and you just don't know if you can keep on giving it and being hurt like you've been hurt. It's like, I don't know if I can keep I just don't know if I can keep being vulnerable and letting myself get stomped on or being hurt or being misunderstood. I just don't know if I can keep loving like this because it hurts too much. Or maybe it's in a work environment where you're pouring yourself into that work environment and you're caring about your fellow workers and the cause of the company, and you just feel like your love and care and concern for that environment and what you do and what you bring to that is just being trampled underfoot. Or maybe it's your relationship with your adult kids, or it's your relationship with your kids at home, or your parents, or your in-laws, or your neighbors. I don't know what the context is, but sometimes it's our love that we're least willing to give generously. It seems excessive to us. I give my money, give my time, even other resources, make an effort, but don't ask me to give my love because I've been hurt too much, and so the wall comes up. And Jesus is saying, I want you to be excessive. I want you to love like I love. And when you get hurt, and you will get hurt. You can't love without getting hurt. Why? We live in a broken world with broken people in it. So anybody you love is broken. And broken people break people. Hurt people hurt people. It's inevitable. But Jesus is saying, don't let that stop you. When you get hurt, just come to me. I'll heal you, and I'll pour my love out in you, because your love, if you're tapping into my love, is not a limited resource. It's an unlimited resource. Love them with the love I love you with, and there'll be no end to your capacity to love. What is Jesus wanting you to do? I don't know the answer to that question for you personally, but I'm pretty sure you do. And if you don't, I'm sure that if you ask Jesus, hey, what's my next step? Where do I go? What do I do with this that I've heard here today? He'll be very quick and clear to answer your question. And then my challenge to you would be the same. Do it. Let's do it. Because it's never a waste if it's done for Jesus. Do it. Let's pray.